From the Ticats Audio Network, this is the Ticats This Week with RJ Broadhead and Luke Tasker.
It's time for Ticats This Week. I'm RJ Broadhead. He's Luke Tasker. We call the games for the Tiger Cats, and we were fresh off a win against Montreal. That was a fun game to call. It got interesting there at the end. And I have to go back to last week on Ticats This Week, Luke. We had a discussion of a must-win, and by the letter of the law, you're right. It wasn't a must-win for the Tiger Cats against Montreal, but boy, didn't it make things a lot better this week going into the game against Toronto coming up on Saturday, and they got a little help too. Montreal loses to Winnipeg. Ottawa beats Toronto. Now it's a first-place battle on Saturday. All of a sudden, they go from one win to playing for first place.
Absolutely. It helps things greatly with the win last week. And you and I are going to go back and forth all season about what qualifies as a must win. And I take your criteria to mean sort of a morale, maybe must win, because it would feel very differently. And there'd be some different conversations going on about the Ticats.
Well, they'd be tied with Ottawa now with one win.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it would feel very different here. But I'm telling you, how powerful is it going to be when I get to say a must win at some point this year? Because we'll inevitably get, if not for the Ticats, we'll get to some must win games where everything's on the line for some of these teams in the East. And but yeah, RJ, they're sitting. That win it makes everything feel different about the season. And now we have a great matchup this weekend in Toronto for first place in the East.
Yeah, when you say must win, it's going to have a lot of credence, maybe more so than when I say it. It was a nice win to have. All of a sudden, it just really changes the season. And I was going through and I was looking at the defense, Luke, and flashing back to that Montreal game, and I'll run through a few things. They only allowed one touchdown in that game. That was the fewest they've allowed in a game this season. Kept the opposition under 100 yards for the sixth time in 7 games, 100 yards rushing, that is. This is kind of an offense and defense, these next two. Fourth straight game, more net yards than opposition. Quarterback sacks, first time they didn't allow any, so that's great for the offensive line. Mm-hmm. But 5 sacks by the defensive line, so they were unbelievable. 11 knockdowns in that game. Cam Kelly comes up with his third interception of the season. Julian Hauser's been all over the quarterbacks. This defense, it wasn't long ago they had allowed, and turnovers played into it, but second most points allowed in the CFL. Now all of a sudden, second fewest in the East Division. The numbers are starting to flatten out, and the defensive numbers are really excellent. We've given the defense credit, but have we given enough credit for what they've done this season?
Well, I think that they're trending correctly because they weren't playing perfect football to start off. I mean, they were just as much the issue as the offense, and I don't want to say just as much. The turnovers were obviously the real Achilles heel early in the season for the Ticats, but they played well against Montreal, meaning the defense. And I think you have to point out Cariel Brooks, who was back in the lineup and had a really, really solid game in the secondary. And that secondary, 2021, right at the top of the league for interceptions and knockdowns. And that game was back to that level of excellence in the defensive secondary. But it goes hand in hand, the rush and the coverage. And came into that game last week with 10 sacks, and they got 5 more in that game itself, and most of them coming in early in the game. I mean, it was really they were putting legitimate, serious pressure on Trevor Harris. You know how much I love seeing Dylan Wynn back there, and Micah Johnson. That was just awesome to see. And the I think when they have success up front with the front four, that's when those knockdowns and interceptions start becoming easier, right? I mean, and easier is a strange word to use for that, but it is. I mean, they get it helps those guys in the secondary, and Jamal Roll and Cariel Brooks and Tunde Adeleke, they were all over the field in that game against Montreal. I just think if we see them string more games like that together, that's going to be another sign of the many that are going that of things going well for the Ticats. But I got to say, RJ, that the fourth quarters are still a glaring issue. And even in the victory, they were way outscored in the fourth quarter. And the defense has a part in that too. Teams have had success stringing drives together in the fourth quarter. That's got to get fixed.
Yeah, it was 8 points off a turnover again that Montreal got in the fourth quarter. Those fourth quarter turnovers, it made the game way more interesting than it nedeed to be.
Exactly, and that turnover happened way in Montreal's territory, but still they pieced together a long drive and turned points off. Like how much that is, so many momentum building moments back to back, meaning you get the turnover, then you get a sustained drive and a touchdown and a 2-point conversion. It's like, man, everything starts rolling downhill and snowballing. And it started with the turnover like it has so many times.
Well, I was feeling pretty good in that game in the second half because the Tiger Cats hadn't won a third quarter. They'd only scored 12 points in 6 games total in the third quarter. Then they scored 14 and things were looking great. Man, it's the entertainment business. You got to entertain the fans, make it close, make it fun at the end.
That's what they were doing. They were just keeping us all in.
That's right. Yeah. If it only worked that way. Hey? I think Tiger Cats fans would like a big win, a comfortable win, but Toronto has given the Tiger Cats problems. They were better in the regular season last season, but in the playoffs, Tiger Cats won when it really mattered. Argos have been tough to figure out. They're in first place. They're 3-3. They've had some great games. They've had some not so great games. Ottawa just beat them. That's a big win for the Red Blacks, and congratulations to Sean Burke, the former Tiger Cat, getting his first win as the general manager in Ottawa. But how do you see this game playing out against the Argos? Tiger Cats had a slow start. They seem to be coming around, and Argos have been inconsistent.
Yeah, and the Argos have kind of been, they came off, though not playing great, and it's funny because you put any of them in the West, and they're not looking very good. And Winnipeg has more wins than the East, right? It's like,
combined, all those teams.
It's not great, but Toronto got off to a kind of they kind of claimed first place early on and have kind of been holding on by the tips of their fingers to that. But the storylines around Toronto to me have turned a little bit negative in the last couple of weeks, and they've got some things they're trying to work out too. And every team in the East is trying to find their identity and sort of lay claim to their position in a playoff race. But yeah, Toronto has some turbulence they're going through right now, and it seems to me like it's on the field. It's a performance thing, and they've also you can see some headlines, and as you look back through, and there's some things sort of personnel and player wise too that aren't going great, and so point being, an opportunity for the Ticats to go in there on that, because the Ticats and the whole season we've been saying, they're much better than their record suggests, right? And they're doing so many things right, but then coming up short where it really counts. And now they've strung two out of 3 wins, two out of 3 games wins, and so it's trending correctly. But to go to Toronto, and they're going to be hungry and ready to start off this 4 out of 5 game rivalry stretch. They're going to be ready to. Just like the Ticats say, draw a line in the sand. Now is where we, really become the team that we've intended to since training camp, and so they're going to be ready too. And they get to start off this thing at home, at their home field, and boy, it's going to be exciting. I think we're going to see a good game, and I actually would think, RJ, that yes, Ticat fans, of course, everyone's dying to see a clear victory, a 20-point spread victory. I don't think we're going to get it. I think we're going to have a close game. I think we're going to have a close game, and it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. You're going to have end of game drives here. It's the way the season's gone, and I expect more.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And I like what you said about winning 2 of the last 3. So the Ticats record is 2-5, but we can make that sound really good. They're coming off a win. They've won 2 of their last 3. They're undefeated against the East Division, so that sounds a lot better than the start they had. So, but it's all about these 6 games. We've talked about it since game 1 or 2 of the season, that these middle 6 games, now they're into game 2 of these middle 6. Took care of business against Montreal. These 4 of the next 5 games against Toronto, this can really dictate the season for either team, really, if one of them can have a lot of success against the opposition. So crucial, not must win, but I really felt that Calgary-Winnipeg game last week had a real playoff feel to it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people were picking Calgary and Winnipeg. They obviously they don't want to lose. They're 9-0. Yeah, they were going to prove they were still the best team. I kind of get the sense we're going to have that feel between the Tiger Cats and Argos. Obviously, the rivalry's there, but I think both teams playing each other for the next 5 games, they realize that this is a real could be a turning point in the season.
Yeah, and it just establishes so much, for the rest of these 4 games ahead of them. If you can kind of get that first win, you're sort of up on the throne, looking down. Going forward, and so, boy, I think for Hamilton to put the last of the woes, not the last. You're never going to play a perfect game. There's going to be mistakes, but it stands out that the last of those dominoes to fall at the start of the season, it was the turnovers, and they've made great gains there, especially offensively, meaning turning the ball over less, and the defensive takeaways have increased as well. But that was the first issue, and they're sort of getting better. And that last huge issue to me is finishing the games and the fourth quarters that have just been atrocious, right? I mean, it's been so hard to kind of watch it start to slip for whatever reason. And if they can fix that issue, I do think they're going to become legitimately very hard to beat.
And just to back that up, the Tiger Cats won the turnover battle against Montreal, wound up winning the game, and it was the first time all season Tiger Cats did not throw an interception. So they'd like to keep that streak going and limit those turnovers. I've followed a lot of fan reaction on the 3-quarterback thing with the Tiger Cats, and maybe more so Matt Schultz coming in and for random plays, it seems, and Dane Evans leaving. And some fans think it's great. It keeps the other team on its toes. They don't know what's coming. Other fans want to see one quarterback in there at all times. And congratulations to Jamie Newman on his first CFL touchdown. But all 3 quarterbacks saw some action in that game against Montreal. Do you like that variety?
I think you're at a place where success has started to come when Matt Schultz has had a hand in the games, and maybe it's a chicken and egg scenario. Like if who knows if it's correlation or causation, but I think Matt Schultz has been a positive impact on the team, and I think when he gets out there, I've liked his efforts in the run game when he's kept the ball. You think back to that late interception that he threw at Tim Hortons Field, but scenario, it was a very bizarre, it's hard to come in there and do that because at that moment it was sort of unexpected for him to enter the game. I think I would keep rolling with it. I don't know why, but I think Dane Evans does well when in bizarre situations like this. And who knows, maybe just chalk it up to mental toughness or just an ability to handle adversity, or in a more positive sense. You also just get a break. You can kind of refresh every now and again. And if the chemistry is good between those quarterbacks, and obviously it goes back to Soley and Dane in 2021, but if the chemistry is good, then sometimes they can kind of foster each other's the best parts of each other's games, and we've seen some excitement with both of them on the field to a degree of success, and then at times it sort of looked a little bit, got broken up quickly or some risky plays. You can think back to BC with that double pass that was very close to being, disaster, and actually Matt Schultz turned it into a positive play. I think we'll continue to see on a called a non-professional note. I think it's exciting to watch. I don't mind looking.
Yeah, me too.
Field. He kind of alerts you, saying, we're in the booth, kind of going, "Oh, RJ, look."
Yeah.
And, it's fun.
Yeah. You're slapping me in the back when both quarterbacks are on there, like, we're gonna have something come here. What's it gonna be?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
fun.
and I almost blew it for him a couple of weeks ago on Ticats this week, saying that they've been practicing it. So we're not talking about it. We're not. I don't know what they're doing in practice. Let's just leave it at that. So
Yeah.
anybody scouting us, because I know this is a big show for the opposition.
Oh my goodness. They're listening to it across the country.
Speaking of the opposition, your buddy Speedy B in the double blue. That's going to be weird for Tiger Cats fans to witness and hear about. What are your thoughts? And he's still got a little gas left in the tank. He's had pretty solid season for the Argos.
Yeah, he's playing good, and I'm so excited to see him on the field again. He just has such a presence out there, and just with his speed and just his ability to make those timely big plays. He's a true all-star, a true gamer, man. He'll get 6 points at the speaking as a Ticat. He gets 6 points at the worst times. When he's in the double blue now. So really excited to see him out there, and it'll be interesting to see when he comes to Tim Hortons Field. We'll touch on that, next week. And but you're gonna have to all of his former teammates that are going to Toronto to play him this week. They've never had to truly game plan against him. He's always been a tool in the toolbox. As opposed to to an enemy. So it'll be interesting. And if he's getting some returns out there, you got to keep your eye on him. And he has run hundreds of routes against these DBs, though never for points that mattered. But it'll be exciting to watch. I'm sure we'll be talking about that throughout the broadcast.
Yeah, there'll be a little competition there, I'm sure, because there's probably still some friendships, I would assume. And
of course,
I wouldn't be surprised. We saw it with the Red Blacks. They really game planned with Jalen Acklin, especially on that first drive at Tim Hortons Field. He got a touchdown. I wouldn't be surprised early on if Brandon Banks is heavily involved. Would you?
No, I won't be surprised at all. And I think throughout the game, they're not going to let this game go by without giving him some chances downfield. They're going to put it up and see if he can get behind some of the secondary. So, and I agree with you, RJ. I also won't be surprised if we see that early. If we see him take a shot, and then again to go back to the season layout, it's 4 games nearly in a row. So we'll see how his involvement maybe changes or adapts as the games go on.
McLeod Bethel Thompson doesn't run a lot. Maybe similar in the sense to Trevor Harris. Do you think the defense will, after that big game with 5 sacks against Montreal, that they're kind of addicted to the sack now and be going after them?
I would think so. I mean, that is why those guys are football players, man. That's the perfection of that position, is when you get a quarterback sack. And I think they're going to be turned up and ready to go. And it's also so tangible for those guys when they go watch the film, how helpful that was to their entire team, and especially the rest of their defense, the other 7 guys out there on defense. Just how helpful that was in their efforts. And so, man, they're going to be ready to go.
Yeah, well, look at the game was close and really pushed Montreal at a field goal range at least once, maybe a couple of times.
And that's a good point. And also that first quarter, RJ, was just amazing. The ball was entirely on the Ticats end of the field, and by the time the first half ended, they had only let 2 field goals in. They had 6 points on the board. That was an incredible defensive half.
Yeah, and I'm convinced teams can't run against this Hamilton defense. I'm always surprised when there's a gain of over 5 yards, which is good for Ticats fans. You don't want to be like, oh wow, stop them at 3 yards. That's rare. so not allowing many big rushes, but Andrew Harris will be a challenge for sure.
Yeah, he's a great player. He's up there in the all-time yardage rushing yards list in the league history, and you can't not have a plan for that, and it's a weapon that the Argos they paid for it. They bought it, and they are able to use it, and so it's just part of the efforts when you have to go up against them. You have to watch out for that kind of player, and he's obviously had incredible impact on all the teams he's been a part of. And so now he's in the double blue, and the Ticats have to be ready for him for the next month.
Yeah, I just feel that defense is looking forward to the challenge. Simone's back.
I agree.
Kyle Wilson was terrific filling in, but having Simone back, tell us how much of an impact you think that'll have.
Well, we all know about his energy and what he is as part of this team, even apart from his performance. But then when you look at his performance, I mean, he's speaking of league leaders, he's climbing up the ranks all time in tackles, and he's the all-time Ticat leader in tackles, and you can't speak highly enough about it. And I've always said Simone's forever 21, meaning 21 and 21 years old. He's just high motor, high energy, and especially, and what I hope, RJ, is that he's truly healthy. That he's not pushing to get back earlier than his body is saying he should. And obviously no one's privy to that except for the people inside the locker room walls, but you can assume that that he's doing what's best for chances at a Grey Cup, and so hopefully this is his first game back and his last time being out.
Yeah, you're probably right. It would be hard to keep him out of the lineup even if he wasn't 100% in the game against the Argos. But yeah, you'd have to think that he's feeling much, much better. I don't know how often players are 100% 7-8 games into the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. And maybe I remember times actually where a little thing happened in the season, and so you kind of got to step out. I tore my quad once, and you step out of the season for a couple games to get that right. But meanwhile, everything
couple of games, a torn quad.
Yeah, and
you're a fast healer.
I've still got issues from that torn quad. But as you get that injury healthy, the little things all over your body from that started in training camp are actually getting better. Beyond where they would have been. And so sometimes you get that perfect, little spell of healing. And if you handle an injury right, and I had ones that I handled right and handled poorly, but if you handle them right, you come back and you're better for it.
Well, fingers crossed for Simone. Another change, Mike Jones at wide receiver. It'll be good to see him in a Ticats uniform. The bad news there is Tyler Turnowski got injured. He just seemed to be emerging with some big plays. Keandre Smith came up with his first CFL reception, but Mike Jones in there at wide receiver, and Durant at the slot back, who wasn't targeted at all. We kind of expected he'd be used a little more against Montreal, but on that right side with Durant and Jones, what do you expect to see?
Yeah, I'm excited for it. Two national guys, and you get Mike Jones, who, I was around for his first seasons around there, and he by the time I was done with the Ticats, he had developed into a legitimate weapon, and I mean, great speed. And he's one of those guys where you won't say his name until all of a sudden he catches a 50-yard touchdown pass, and he just and that's sort of the nature of far right wide receiver, right? The Z or the Z guy out there, and you got to but you can't sleep on Mike Jones. He's got legitimate professional speed, and excited to see him back in Hamilton. Good player and a good guy in the locker room too.
Tiger Cats coming off a win against Montreal. Argonauts coming off a loss against Ottawa. What's your gut tell you for Saturday?
Boy, I think Hamilton is poised to establish themselves at first. I really do, and I love playing at BMO Field. I love it. It's just a great. It's got its quirks, and we'll save it for the broadcast. And you should tune into the Ticats Audio Network and have a listen on the game if you can't watch it live or you're not going to be at the stadium. And we'll talk about the field there, and there's some quirky things, including the strangeness in the end zones and the depths and stuff. But man, I always loved playing there. It's a short drive away, and it's a soccer, true grass field, and just a exciting time. And you're always going to have black and gold in the stands, man. There's always going to be a hometown feel. Just a great energy for Ticats.
Yeah, fill that crowd, Tiger Cats fans, and we'll see what happens. Another big game. We're not calling it a must-win, but it's a big game. Can we agree on that?
I wholeheartedly agree. Huge game, and going to set the tone for the next month of football between the Ticats and the Argos.
Awesome. Great chatting with you, Luke, and can't wait to chat with you during the game on Saturday.
Awesome. See you there.
So 7 o'clock kickoff between the Tiger Cats and the Argos from BMO Field. We will have the call for you. Kickoff, 7 o'clock. We'll chat to you then. That's another edition of Ticats This Week. Thanks for listening to the Ticats Audio Network.
It's been another busy week for your Hamilton Tiger Cats. Luke Tasker and RJ Broadhead have covered it all, and now we would like to hear from you. Email us anytime at gameday@ticats.ca. Subscribe to the Ticats Audio Network on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.